Hey guys, welcome to another episode of NetSec Now. Today we're going to be discussing an introduction into Sqlmap, or SQLmap, as in Kali Linux. It is included, it is command line driven. Basically we're going to be going over some SQL database injections. We're going to find that through a little bit of crafty Google dorking, to basically quickly find and identify a website that has vulnerable PHP code. You can use it against ASP code and so on and so forth. We're going to find a little bit of vulnerable code. I'm going to show you how to do that. We'll take a look at Sqlmap, what we can pull down, what we can find, and go from there. I'm not really huge into web penetration testing. Unfortunately, it's something that I've been meaning to learn extensively for a number of years now, and I just have never really had the time to devote to get into it. But now I am trying to make some time to learn some new stuff. I think it's pretty important in the industry, the way things are going. Everybody seems to be moving to cloud computing, which is dangerous in and of itself. Nonetheless, a lot of people have applications on their company websites, so on and so forth. So you may come across it where you need to do a web app penetration test. Maybe if you can't get into their network any other way and all they have is a public-facing web server, perhaps you can pull down a database. Perhaps you can find another way in that way. Okay, so the other thing too worth mentioning is if you did, say for instance, find a vulnerability on their website for, say, cross-site scripting, right, or code injection, command injection. You can do that, and essentially when a user in the company browses that website, maybe you uploaded a Java applet, where it would exploit their system and get your interpreter shell. So that is possible, doing such things as a SQL injection or command execution, code insertion, things like that. So today, like I said, we're going to go over SQL injections just very basically. I'm sure there's a ton of people out there that know way more about this stuff than me, and I am still learning, so bear with me. Okay, so what we're going to basically do here is fire up our Kali Linux box, which I conveniently already have going. In my cracking directory, if you guys have been following along, I have the following directory structure. I like to keep everything logged and in place. Okay, and the command for Sqlmap is simply SQLmap, and that's it. So first let's talk a little bit about how an SQL injection actually works. Basically, when a web developer writes let's use PHP code for instance, and they're pulling down information stored in a database, primarily websites that include shopping carts, any kind of sites like WordPress, any kind of CMS site really. And what they do is they're pulling down data from the tables and the structure inside of the actual database itself and printing that information to the screen. However, SQL injections are possible because the web app developer either missed it, doesn't know about it, or whatever, and improperly codes the system or the site or application in this case to not properly sanitize user inputted data. So you may be going to a website, and let's say you go to a shopping cart site or something, and you want to buy something. So you click on your category of what you're looking to buy, and you click on the products, and you find a product you want to buy, and you click on that product to get more information about it, and you'll see some stuff in the URL bar like PID equals 23 or something like that. So basically, let's just open up Iceweasel, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to find something like that. So Google dorking, Google pretty much automatically does it for you now unless you want to really get specific about it, but we're going to do just a pretty broad search. And so we're looking for anything that ends in the extension .php, and we're going to be looking for a question mark after that, and then something equals, and that's it. So basically it goes .php, question mark, and then we're going to use ID equals, which I conveniently already have saved in there. Okay, so in looking through some of these links here in Google, you can see that it says, let's just take this first site for instance, www.futurefins.com /fin-detail.php and question mark ID equals 173. Let's go ahead and click on that website, that link. I apologize if the machine's running a little bit slow today. Okay, so we basically see some sort of surfboard fin site or something it appears to be. Okay, let's just say this was our customer. Of course, I don't recommend you guys go try to attack these guys' sites or anything like that. but I am just showing you this for a demo because I don't really have a demo kicking around here. We're not going to do anything dangerous to the site. We're not going to inject it or crack passwords or anything like that. All that is possible, quite possible, but we're not going to do that for legal reasons, obviously. Okay, so we see the site here, and we see up here in our address bar the important information we're looking for here is anything with .php question mark telling it you're going to move on to a different command, ID equals 173. The very simple way to test to see if this is actually vulnerable to a SQL injection is we're going to be looking for an error. Now, how to generate an error? Well, basically anything that we put into the URL bar, or if this was a form, for instance, there's some manual injections that you can do in forms, which we'll get into in a later video. But basically anything you put in, if it kicks back an error message, we're looking for something like MySQL, database query, you have an error on such and such line, and I'm going to show you that. So basically right after the ID equals and then whatever number or whatever they put after that, you're just going to go ahead and type an apostrophe and hit enter. And you can see, of course, it says you have an error in your MySQL syntax. Check the manual that corresponds to your MySQL server version for the right syntax to use near / at line 1. Okay, so we have an error that validates that this is indeed vulnerable to some sort of SQL injection. What it is, we will not know just yet. We don't know what kind of information we can get from it just yet, but we do know by getting this error message, by typing the apostrophe after the last number and hitting enter, that we can validate and saying that there is an error in the coding on this website. Okay, so sometimes if you're using like Microsoft SQL database or even sometimes MySQL, depending on how the code is actually written, it may even give you the application's local directory, right? So it may say that you have a error on whatever file, fin-detail.php online, so on and so forth, located in, and it'll give you the directory structure like www/data/ public_HTML/ website or something, right? So it'll give you the directory path of where this file actually lies. Now that might be important when you're doing your information gathering to just jot that down. So this way, if you do exploit the website and you're somehow able to get to where you can upload a file to the website, maybe like a PHP shell or something, you'll know the directory structure in which to upload it and where to start looking for the files once you've uploaded it. Okay, so that's just a little tidbit there. So basically what we want to do now is we want to copy this link without the apostrophe. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back, and I'm going to copy this whole URL here. Okay, so let's talk about Sqlmap a little bit. This is a script written in, I believe, Python. It's included in Kali Linux. And again, it's very easy. You just type in Sqlmap and hit enter. And you can see that it's just going to say, you didn't enter any commands in after it. But if we want to do like for help, I think it's -H here. Okay, so you can list all of the commands that Sqlmap takes, and you can see there's quite a bit. I definitely recommend that you would read this over if you really want to get into it pretty crazy, and go really in depth with it. But for this demonstration here, we're not going to really read through much of this stuff. The good thing about Sqlmap is you can use a proxy, or you could use Tor with this. So that might be helpful. Okay, so what we're really going to be basically going over is the -u, and if you notice, you can do Google dorking inside of Sqlmap, but we're not going to worry about that because we're just focused on one target URL. So -u and then the URL, it looks like the syntax is afterwards, example target URL, so on and so forth. Okay, we're going to be focused on, we're not going to be using proxies or anything like that. We're going to be focused on DBS, which let's see here. It's not really in this. It's pretty much part of DBMS, which is force the backend database type. We know that this is MySQL, but somebody could lie in the error messages, so we're not 100% sure. Okay, but at this point, that's pretty much what we need to get started. So let me just go ahead and clear this out. Okay, so Sqlmap -u, right, for URL, and we're just going to paste our URL in here. Oops. I messed it up. Hang on a sec. Okay. So Sqlmap -u, Apparently I didn't really copy this correctly. Alright, now that should work. There we go. And what we want to do after this is we don't want to put the apostrophe in here, right? Because we just did that to see if it was vulnerable to some sort of injection. So after that, we're going to do tac dbs, and that's going to pull down and check every single type of database like PostgreSQL, Postgres SQL, in Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, and all that good stuff. So just go ahead and hit enter after that. Okay, so now it scrolled pretty fast, right? This works pretty quick. And you can see it just pulled down a whole mess of stuff for us. Now let's just scroll all the way up to the top here. Okay, so going from where we entered it in, it's saying that resuming backend DBMS MySQL, testing connection to the target URL, and it went ahead and put a GET request in there for us. And it went ahead and looked at a bunch of different stuff and did some testing on its own here. And it did a union select, or a union query, I should say. And it says indeed the backend is MySQL. And the beautiful thing about this is, much like how Nmap works with OS detection and things like that, it says web application technology Apache 2.2.22, which is the web server software that's running this website currently. The PHP version right here, pretty helpful to have. And the backend database is MySQL version 5.0. So now you can see it says fetching database names, definitely a good sign. The SQL query used returns 604 results. So we essentially pull down 604 different databases from this one website. Now, of course, when you're going to be looking for interesting databases, something like, say, users or CMS or something to that effect, again, 604 results that are returned. I'm not going to go digging through each one of these, but obviously if we were doing a pen test for our customer, we definitely want to see what each and every database is giving up. Okay, so I'm just going to search through here and just pick any random one. I'm going to try to go look for something called users, and I don't think it's going to be in here. Let's see here. Yeah, there's nothing in here, users. So we're just going to go and pick any random one from up here. Let's see. Let's pick David K. Why not? So just copy that. Okay. So the easiest thing to do here is just to hit the up arrow. Now, instead of DBS at the back here, we're going to just do is delete all that, one tac, and then capital D for database. We're going to go ahead and paste in our database that we want to pull from. Then we're going to do tac tables. Now it's going to list all the individual tables inside of the database David K. Go ahead and hit enter. Okay, it says couldn't find any table names for any of the databases that we listed. Do you want to use common table existence check? You could hit yes, but I'm going to go ahead and hit no. So it couldn't really find anything in that. So if we scroll back up here, we'll have to pick another one. So that database is pretty much empty. And I know I've tested this site before, and I'm trying to find a database to just give you guys an idea of what you can actually find in there. I can't remember which database I actually pulled down. Let's try Aldar WordPress. It looks like Aldar_WP. Let's go ahead and copy this. And again, we'll just do up arrow, and we'll delete David K as the table, and we will paste in our new table that we're going to try to query. And of course, there's nothing in there as well. I do have a website to show you guys that is actually really vulnerable, and you can pull down some interesting information. So I'm not going to really go through this anymore. However, like I said, you really could find some interesting stuff in here. And we're going to go ahead and go to a website that I know has a decent leak in it. Trust me, people have been trying to crack this MD5 salted MD5 hash for years now, according to Google, and it's just not crackable. So this guy's password must just be ridiculously long and extensively difficult to guess. So we're going to get into that there. We're not going to try to go through any more of this guy's database here. So I'll show you another example here of just how far you can actually go with it. Let me just clear this screen out. So that website there was, let's see, Okay. So this website here, dracoders.com. And you can see this one says games.php, again, question mark, ID equals 22. So of course, we would just go ahead and put in our apostrophe and hit enter. And here we go, we have our error message, so that's good. It's definitely injectable. Okay, and it says, see now this error message is different from the last one. It says query execute error select asterisk wildcard from CMS underscore games where ID equals 22. Alright, so that's probably pretty important to know. From the database is trying to pull from is CMS underscore games. So it says MySQL error, you have an error in your SQL syntax, so on and so forth. Now it doesn't give us a actual file directory structure or path to where the files for this home directory actually live for the web. So, but it does give us from which database it's trying to pull it down from. So again, using this website, just to delete this, using this website as a test, I'm going to go ahead and Control-C this. And we'll go back to Sqlmap and then, oops, Sqlmap, tac U, right, for URL. Go ahead and paste our URL in there without the apostrophe, and then tac dbs, and hit enter. Okay, so you can see that it went ahead and pulled down some databases. Now, it's not pulling down a database really that says CMS games in this list here. So in this case, we're just going to go ahead and select the very first one here. Now, information schema is usually used for website settings, you know, what the database structure should look like, tables should look like, things like that. There's probably nothing in there worth looking at. So we're going to go ahead and copy this, and then of course just up arrow again, and then this time it's just tac capital D for the database we want to select, paste the actual database name, and then of course list the tables with tac tables. Hit enter. Okay, so you can see that now here's all of our tables inside of this database, right? Now we got some results back, and if we look through here, we're probably going to want to look for something called users or usernames or members or something like that. So if we scroll all the way down, it looks like the beginning name is JOS, and here we go, we found users. So that's pretty interesting. So we're going to go ahead and copy that because we want to look specifically at that, right? Now, I mean, you have other things up here like menu and modules and plugins and things like that. I don't think we really need to go through all that. Okay, so now we have our table selected. Make sure I copy this. So now we're just going to up arrow again, and instead of tac tables, we're going to leave our database name the same because that's the database we want to select from. We now know our table, so we're going to erase all that, and it's just going to be one tac capital T space and then our table name, and then we want to do tac columns. Now we want to list all of the columns inside of the database SQL 286973_1 in the table JOS_users, and we want to see all the columns that table actually contains. Okay, so now this is where you get down to the meaty stuff, right? So it looks like we got the right database, we have the right set of tables, and now we pull down all the columns. So we're obviously looking for an easy, quick in, right? We're looking for usernames and passwords. You may also find some sites, and I've found these before, where it dumps an exponential amount of data. If you go into like members or something like that, you can select multiple things. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. But you can sometimes get people's telephone numbers, addresses, emails, first name and last name in full, and sometimes their date of birth, depending on what the site actually asks their members to sign up with, what information. And believe it or not, even if it doesn't require it, people love to enter their information, right? As we learned in the information gathering stage of the beginning of network security. So basically, here's what we want to do here. We're looking for usernames, passwords. So we want password, we want password here, we want username, and we want user type probably because we want to know if they're an admin or if they're just a regular user, right? So it's giving that us that option, so we might as well take a look at it. And we also want send email or regular email. Let's just do regular email, okay? So perhaps if you gathered their email, maybe at that point, if it was an administrator or something to that effect, maybe you can send them a payload in an email as well if you couldn't get into their site, right? So Mr. Customer, webmaster at whateverdomain.com. We found a vulnerability on your website. Click this link. And they click the link, and guess what? Now they have a reverse shell in their system. Okay, so to basically do that, it's pretty easy. We're again going to go up arrow. And again, we're going to just backspace out of columns here. And then just going to do tac capital C for columns. And we want to do, now if you were just doing one, you would enter in the name alone, no commas or anything crazy like that. But for this instance, we want as much information as we can get from the system. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to type in, and it goes left to right. So what you type in is what you're going to see on the screen. So I want username, and I want comma, no spaces, password. I want user type. Now also notice that some of them are case sensitive, so you'll have to type it case sensitive. And I want email. Okay, so now after that we do tac dump to dump all the information to our screen. So let's go ahead and hit enter, and hey, look at that. So I know it's kind of messy to see on the screen, and even if you widened it, it wouldn't change much. That's how it drops it down. If you just do username and password, obviously it would just be in columns normally. This also writes it to a CSV file as well. If you look at the bottom here, it says dump to CSV file located in user share, Sqlmap output, the website URL, dump, SQL, the database name, and the users that we pulled and stuff like that. The tables that we pulled. And then of course it's also logged in just that folder there as well. So it's in a text file. So anyway, now you can see we have this person's email. Their username is admin, definitely a good sign. Their user type is super administrator, bingo, we're right on the money. Here's their encrypted password here. Okay, and that's all we really asked from the database, right? If you remember the command, that's really all we asked from them, right? Username, password, user type, email. Okay, so now you might be asking yourself, well, what do we do with this data? Well, you would probably want to crack the password, right? So you can definitely save this, and you can go back to our cracking password hashes with Hashcat video tutorial to see how to use Hashcat, but we're going to briefly go over to how to identify what type of hashing logarithm it's using, and perhaps see what we can do from there. Let's just go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to go ahead and open a new tab here. And for those that have been following along, you're probably going to guess that I'm going to go through looking at hash identifier to find out what type of hash this is. I'm going to go ahead and paste this one in here. And remember, it's just a hash, not the username. And you can see here, I'll post a link in the description as well, but there's an interesting website. I did, for those of you that follow us on Facebook, I did post a link to an interesting site that shows you how to visualize and remember the differences between different types of password hashing algorithms. And if you look at that on our Facebook page, which will also be linked in the description, you can definitely find that and check it out. It's a good read. I, for one, know most of them when I see them by eye, just because I've been doing it for so long, but it doesn't hurt to practice. So anyway, let's just go ahead and hit enter. And it says the possible hashes are MD5, and if you look closely here, it says pass.salt, and then it says Joomla. Now that's just roughly estimated that it's a Joomla type password. I guess that's the algorithm that Joomla uses. So anyway, it's pass.salt. Now if you look here, that would mean that this first half before the colon is the actual password. Then there's a colon, and then this is this salt over here. Now the thing about salted hashes, especially MD5, now the reason why they started using salting is because MD5 was so darn easy to crack, right? So it was kind of very insecure, so they came up with an idea to add some random characters and digits to the actual hashing algorithm itself to make it more complex. Now you can't break just this MD5 on its own here, just the password portion of it. You have to also break the salt. Now that intensifies the complexity of the actual password, as I said, and therefore it may or may not crack. It depends on how good your word list is, again. So we know that it's definitely an MD5 pass.salt, right? It's not a SAM at all. So That's pretty much it. So you can just get out of hash ID. Sorry, it's Control C. Okay, so let's go ahead and clear that out. So we have the username and password hash on this one here, and we also have their email address again as well. So you can just see from that alone how easy it is to pull information from a database from an incorrectly programmed website. So you may be asking yourself, well, great, I've got the username, I've got the password, what type of user they are, and hell, I even got their email address, but what in the world am I supposed to do with it? Well, here's the thing, guys. Usually most CMS websites, like WordPress, like whatever this guy's using, whether it's custom or it's something store-bought or it's something free and open source like WordPress, whatever CMS they're using, they usually have an administrator panel, a web-based administrator panel. Okay, now some of them don't. Don't get me wrong, some of them don't. Some of them use a different type of technique to log in, which is HT password files, to even get to the admin login panel. Now it's just a second level of security. So that you'd have to get past as well. In most cases, though, like things like Joomla and WordPress, there's just a login.php somewhere in the administration folder set, and you would log in that way. However, some custom ones, it's really a gamble. Now, there are some tools out online that you can do a scan of a website, and you can actually find out what their administration panel is. You can also use tools that are built into Kali, like Vega, and do a scan of the site, or OpenWasp. You can do a scan of the site, and basically it's just a crawler to crawl all the URLs on that site completely, and then you'll find out that hey, an interesting one is /admin. Well, gee, what could that be? Or / admin _ CMS or something, right? So you get the idea. So you can also do that manually. So if you went ahead and went over to this guy's website again, you can look sometimes in the page source, and maybe perhaps there's going to be some sort of identification of what type of CMS it is. Like for instance, you go to a WordPress site and you look in the in the code, you'll see that it has designations all over it that it's WordPress or Joomla or something like that. Powered by Joomla, powered by WordPress, whatever. So this one here, briefly browsing over it, it really doesn't say very much. Okay, he's got a stat counter in there. That's about it. Even if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, sometimes it would say powered by, and it says nothing. So we have to assume that this is maybe a custom-made, since they're a coding company. Maybe this is a custom-made CMS. So let's just start off with the easiest ones first, right? /admin. Oh, what do you know? There's an administration login. Now you can also try to check the page source of the admin login to see if there's a designation to what the actual CMS is. In this one, it doesn't look like it is. So this has got to be something custom programmed, or just one of those things you find on like hotscripts.com or something that somebody else made, and that's probably why it's insecure. Okay, so once you crack the password, you'd log in with admin here and the password here and hit enter. Pretty simple, right? So I don't know what a CMS looks like. I'm not going to try to even bother cracking the password. If you do a Google search for that hash with salt, you'll find a bunch of people that's been trying to crack it for years, like I said. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. Sqlmap also has some fancy stuff in here, and actually I'll show you because it's pretty cool. This is like autopwn for things like Metasploit, stuff like that, WebSploit. This is like autopwn for that, Sqlmap that is. And it works really well, and it's pretty much your one-stop shop for most of your SQL injection stuff. Now, there's other things like SQL Ninja and so on and so forth, and I really personally haven't gotten into those yet, so I've watched a few videos on them. I really don't see the difference, per se, at this point anyway, what the difference is between like SQL Ninja and Sqlmap. So anyway, if we type in Sqlmap help again, oops, we'll do this. Now you can see here operating system access. Okay, these options can be used to access the backend database management system underlying operating system. OS shell, prompt for an interactive operating system shell. OS pwn, prompt for an OOB shell, interpreter, or VNC. Now, if you wanted to use a wizard, there's also a wizard in here as well. The wizard I'm not a big fan of. I mean, I just think that I just think that doing it manually is better. Anyway, you can also, on some of the password hashes, Sqlmap will automatically try to crack the password hash for you, which is exceptionally awesome because then you don't have to open up, hash identifier and find out what type of hash it is, and then put it into a list, pull down a password list, put it into Hashcat, and try to crack it all day long. Sometimes it'll actually go ahead and do it for you. So I'm sure there's maybe a switch in here somewhere. I haven't really looked to see if you can set it up to try to crack it for you as it pulls it down, but to be honest, I'm not 100% sure. So anyway, we can go ahead and try. Let's say, I don't know. We're gonna do just erase all this here, and we're gonna do OS shell. Let's just see what it does. Which web application language does a web server support? Well, pretty much we know it's PHP, right? Because it was .php question mark. So we're going to go ahead with number 4. And it says, what do you want to search for? What do you want to use for web server document root? Common locations, custom location. Now this is where it would help to have that location for the document root if it was included in the error message. Okay, custom directory list file, brute force search. So we're just going to go ahead with one. I'm not trying to brute force anybody's, server. So basically it says unable to retrieve automatically any web server path. Trying to upload file stage on var www, and it didn't work. And of course it didn't work. Nothing really worked basically, so it just shut itself down. Now if you were to go ahead and do the other one in here, which was OS pwn, let's try to go ahead and do that, or OS own, however you want to pronounce it. Okay, let's try to do that. And again, it's PHP, and again, we'll just use one. And it says unable to prompt for an out of band session. So, it's not going to work 110% of the time, guys. It may be rare that it works, in fact. Just like it's rare that it works inside of Metasploit, or Armitage and stuff like that. So, again, it's interesting to be able to find an error in somebody's website, I think, a coding error, and go ahead and pull down a database, especially with sensitive information. Now, this guy has been sent hundreds of emails by people over the years, I'm sure, that, of course, his website was vulnerable to a SQL injection. I just don't think he cares, or maybe he's not around. I don't know. I haven't tried to personally contact him myself, but I will send him an email to let him know, hey, this is still vulnerable. Accidentally, I did find a site, like I said before, where it dumped a ton of their members' personal information. Now, there wasn't anything sensitive in there, like credit cards or anything like that, because trust me, that would be something where I'd have to figure out what their telephone number is and call them right away. But it did dump enough information where I was vastly concerned about the amount of information that was stored in that database about people. So I went ahead and sent not only the webmaster, but the registered owner of the website URL an email explaining to them that accidentally I came across this while I was doing a training video, and they should really take care of that rather quickly. So hopefully they do the right thing. And of course, I sent the email anonymously, so either way, hopefully they do something about that. So that's pretty much it for SQL injections as far as the very, very bare basics, guys. I'm still getting into it myself, so as the knowledge comes my way and I retain it and I feel comfortable enough with it, and I know everything there is to know about it, I'm definitely going to push it out your way and share that with you. In other news, in terms of, I know I haven't made a video in a very long time, and I do apologize for that. In the last video I made saying that I wasn't dead, as some people may have claimed. I've just been really super busy with work. I started a second business as well that has nothing to do with IT, as funny as that is, but I also, took an extended vacation with the family, try to get some more family time in and do some recreational activities. But rest assured now, the slow time of the season comes for whatever reason. It's fall here now, and winter's just around the corner, it seems like. So we're going to be able to crank out more videos here because I'll have more downtime to actually focus 110% on it. They're providing that, I tried to make this video the other day or the other evening, and the software that I use decided to crash after the video was done, and I couldn't recover it, unfortunately. So, yeah. that's that. I do want to keep going on the web penetration testing stuff, guys, because I think it's pretty interesting. I think that's where the industry is going to be moving to. I've been subbing out all of my web pen test stuff to somebody else that specializes just in that. Now, of course, I can't really go and ask them to train me how to do it because, of course, I'd be taking money away from them, and so they're not going to really do that. But nevertheless, I do still want to get into the advanced series, guys, but I've really been thinking about it even while I've been busy working. And there's, outside of remote penetration testing, there's only a few tricks and tips that I can show you to, do that. Each situation is going to be independent and it's going to be different. So there's no, one direct way approach, punch a hole into the system and, we're into our customer's network. We can try to do some scenarios. However, since it's been so long since we last used the VMs, all of the trial licenses expired on the Windows workstations. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to reinstall those, and since that's such a daunting task, I'm going to need an exceptional amount of time to actually get that done, and I do apologize for that. But rest assured, I haven't forgotten about it. I haven't forgotten about this project here. I think it's very important that you guys are keeping learning. Definitely use other channels and other mediums to keep yourself learning. And that's pretty much it, guys. So thanks for watching. Check out our other videos if you haven't already, and if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the video. I'd really appreciate that. Check out our website, learnnetsec.com, and check out our Facebook page and our Twitter page, which is linked here in the description. All right, guys, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.